What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost, and from the very beginning, Naughty Dog has been doing everything they possibly can to control the narrative around The Last of Us Part 2. It started with false copyright striking YouTube channels who were being critical of them. That didn't work. That blew up in their face, and more people heard about it than they could have possibly imagined. Then before the game's release, the review restrictions were some of the most stringent anyone has ever seen in a pre-release review of a game, because they didn't allow anyone to talk about anything that they knew would be controversial in this game. As a result, they got nearly perfect 10 out of 10s. The critics loved this game, but it didn't matter, because when it released, people knew that they did not like this game, and they went to share their opinions on Twitter, on Reddit, on Metacritic. We've seen the fallout from that. Now they're doing something different. Now they are shifting it to try to gain sympathy and take all of the attention off the actual criticisms of this game, and instead focus on the very minute amount of insane people out there who are giving disgusting death threats towards Naughty Dog and their staff. Let's take a look right here. Naughty Dog, this tweet, this is where we're going to start with. Although we welcome critical discussion, well, first of all, that's a lie. You false copyright struck YouTube channels who were literally, they weren't showing the leaks, they weren't talking about the leaks, they were just criticizing how you were handling them. You struck them down to silence them. Don't lie. We condemn any form of harassment or threats directed towards our team and cast. Their safety is a top priority, but we must all work together to root out this type of behavior and maintain a constructive and compassionate discourse. I don't know if discourse necessarily needs to be compassionate. Fine with constructive, but I think that it doesn't need to be compassionate for it still to be good discourse. Now, what are they talking about? We talked a little bit in my last video, and I guess I have to repeat myself over and over and over again, because some people didn't hear me the first time when I said that it's unacceptable for people to be getting death threats. It is wrong. No one should be getting death threats over their part in a video game. However, evidently, either people are bad at listening or don't want to, because you didn't hear that in my video the first time I said it. But anyway, Laura Bailey put this out here. Man, I try to only post positive stuff on here, but sometimes this just gets a bit overwhelming. I blacked out some of the words because, you know, spoilers. And we talked about these. If you want to hear me read them, I'm not going to read them again. But you can see these look to be Instagram DMs, except this one, which is an actual tweet, which we will get to. These seem to be Instagram DMs with people threatening her, even threatening her child, which obviously is disgusting. However, what I did say about this is that of all of the positive interactions that she has, that everyone has on Twitter, there are a couple freaking weirdos that she has highlighted. Now, I do think that she's doing this to garner attention, to get attention to this, to get sympathy for this, and that's fine. You can do that. That's what people do on the internet. They use the people that hate them to fuel things, and I do it, everyone does it, and that's fine. However, what this is doing is it sent everyone into a tizzy, right? Because now, instead of anyone talking about any of the criticisms about The Last of Us Part 2, everyone was rushing to virtue signal and say, oh, no one should be doing this. Of course, no one should be doing this. We're in a day right now where if you don't make some tweet about, oh, this thing really matters, then the assumption is, everyone says, well, why didn't you tweet about that? That must mean that you don't think that matters, which is absolutely ludicrous. And I'm not going to bring myself down to that type of level. I refuse to do that. But it wasn't just Laura Bailey. A couple hours later, Neildruckmann comes out and does the same thing. You can love or hate this game and share your thoughts about it. Unfortunately, too many of the messages I've been getting are vile, hateful, and violent. Here are just a handful of them. Feel it's important to expose. Well, you do feel it's important because, as we're going to see, it has now completely changed the narrative around what people are talking about in regards to The Last of Us Part 2. Trigger warning, transphobic, homophobic, anti-Semitic, etc. And again, I'm not going to take all the time to read through these things. You can go to Neildruckmann's Twitter if you wish to. But a lot of things saying, oh, I hope you die, I hope you catch the beer bug, things like that. Again, disgusting things, and it should not happen to anyone. However, this is the internet. We live on a place where even people like myself, even people that have 300, 400, 500 subscribers on YouTube, there can be people that latch on if they don't like something you say, and they become insanely obsessive. The internet is a weird place where everyone is allowed to have a voice. Unfortunately, when that happens, you will have this microcosm of people, this microscopic amount of people who are insane. But the problem now is what has happened to the discourse. Look at all the articles. When you look up The Last of Us 2, what are you going to find? Now, there's not many things talking about there about the problems with the story, about fans' reactions to what they did to characters like Joel, about fan reactions to Abby. Now, instead, this is what it's about. Last of Us 2 director reveals anti-Semitic hateful stuff. Neildruckmann discusses the hate. Naughty Dog condemns hate speech. Here's one article from VG 24/7 in the past hour that was not like that. Last of Us 2 developer condemns death threats and harassment. Last of Us 2 director Neildruckmann reveals anti-Semitic. Laura Bailey, Neildruckmann, again, online harassment. Naughty Dog responds to threats and abuse. And that is what every single outlet is talking about. Right? This is what they wanted when they did this. They were trying to garner sympathy. And once again, I guess I'll say it again, no one should be receiving death threats, or really anything, but especially about a video game. And Laura Bailey, even less so, because Laura Bailey was just a voice actress. Neildruckmann, if you have any anger about this game, I don't condone sending death threats, but if you have any anger about this game, Neildruckmann is the one who made all of these decisions when it comes to The Last of Us Part 2. Not Laura Bailey, not Ashley Johnson, not Troy Baker. But every freaking one is talking about this. They are no longer talking about the how upset people might have been with the choices. They're no longer criticizing the story about The Last of Us Part 2. Now, they are firmly talking about all of the hate, all the toxicity in the gaming community. That is exactly what Naughty Dog and Neil Druckmann wanted with this. Now, I do think that we need to take a look at some of the people, even the ones that Laura Bailey talked about, even these 6 examples that she gives of people that were doing hateful things. Guess what? One of them is a Last of Us 2 fan. Oh, and I guess I should also say that there have been some people in my comments, some people that are saying, well, this seems like it's fake. I think Naughty Dog did this to themselves. I'll just say right now, and I'll go full screen for this real quick, I don't think that any of these are fake. I get vile stuff in my comments and in my inbox. That's just the internet. I don't think they wouldn't have to fake these. I guarantee there's a lot of anger about this game. And with that comes the couple insane losers who feel like it's okay to give people death threats. So you can say what you want. If you think they're fake, that's fine. But I personally do think all these are actual DMs that they received. But back to this. One of these in here, turns out they're actually a fan of The Last of Us 2. Now, this person is responding to someone who has now limited their tweets. Luckily, we have some screenshots. The game isn't real. If your psychological state makes you send death threats to innocent people, you shouldn't be allowed on social media. Now, they are replying to this person, MH, who now their Twitter is now protected. And the reason is because of this. Now, this is Southpaw, Blessed Southpaw on Twitter. Thank you for grabbing these and posting these. One of the people who send death threats to Laura Bailey is a defender of the effing game. And when you take a look, this person apologizes. I want to say I'm sorry and send my most sincere apologies to Laura Bailey. I am a really big fan of this game, but when it happened at the beginning of the game, I could not control myself. My psychological state became difficult. I could not breathe, but when I played with Abby, I realized I was wrong. Again, this is the person, one of the 5 or 6 people that Laura Bailey screen capped, a fan of the game. How many other people are actually fans of the game and just couldn't control their emotions? Pretty laughable that one of the people who was sending death threats is actually a fan. There are insane people out there, guys. Bottom line, that's just how it is. It's unfortunate, but is the reality of what we live in on the internet. And so now what people are taking to, and I've seen people talking about this, about Jeremy with Geeks and Gamers, Jeremy from the Quartering, Angry Joe, we're going to talk about Angry Joe right here, and even myself saying that, oh, well, because you're critical of a game, this has led to the point in time where they think it's okay to send death threats. And we'll talk about that after I read this. Now, this is an example of a trash games journalist trying to cancel a larger personality. Alessandro Filari, who I think works for GameSpot. Yeah, writer-editor at GameSpot. This tweet from Angry Joe. Now, Angry Joe retweeted Laura Bailey, just like everyone else did almost, and said, "This is unacceptable. You should never send death threats to people." This says, "This tweet from Angry Joe rings incredibly hollow, considering his review of The Last of Us Part 2 is just an extended diatribe of his sexist, misogynistic views. His content more than likely contributed to people harassing Laura, so he can fuck off with this pathetic about face." And that's the thing, it's not enough. Even if you come out and say, just like myself, even when I came out and said that this should not be happening, this is wrong and no one should be doing this, you're still going to have these people. It doesn't matter how much you try to say, they don't want to listen. I have seen people saying that, oh, your content contributed to the atmosphere that allowed people to think it was acceptable. Listen, I am criticizing a video game. I am criticizing a video game. I am criticizing things about the story of the video game and some things about the agenda they tried to push in said video game. At no point in time have I ever condoned death threats. And if there are people on the internet who are crazy, I am not responsible for their actions. Bottom line, and I refuse to try to take some semblance of responsibility for any death threats put in there. And neither should Angry Joe, and neither should any person who has just been critical of The Last of Us Part 2. Because that's laughable. I will not stop making critical Last of Us 2 videos because of this. I will not stop saying fuck Naughty Dog because of this, because I am not a pussy. I'm going to continue giving my opinions. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.